Do you have a hamburger?
Hi, everybody. We are so glad that you could join us via YouTube today for this virtual cooking class. This is my mother, Pam.
Hello.
And for those of you who maybe don't know who I am, I'm Elisa Leese. I'm the program manager at the Senior Center. So today, my mom is going to show you how she makes her homemade spaghetti sauce. This has been a family favorite of ours for many, many years. One of my favorite meals growing up as a kid, and I still make it to this day. So we'll get started and enjoy the presentation. I'll let you take it from here. I'm going to go over and check our hamburger, which is on the stove. So we're cooking up, how many pounds would you say that is? Pound and a half?
You should probably have a pound and a half. Yeah.
Okay, yep, so right now we've got a pound and a half of hamburger cooking on the stove. So I'm gonna go check on that, but I'm gonna let her get started on showing you the process of how to make the sauce.
Well, I'm glad to join you today. I feel I've never done this before, so this will be a new thing for me. So what I do is I just fry the hamburger separately. That way I can drain the whatever grease is on it. I can drain it off well, and I pretty much make all my sauce in this pan here. So what I'm going to do is you would take about 2 tablespoons of oil. Now it could be olive oil or vegetable oil. Here today we have vegetable oil, but I've also used olive oil if you prefer that, or canola if you prefer canola oil. Just put about 2 tablespoons in. I'm not measuring this, but I'm eyeing it, but I put about 2 tablespoons enough to cover the bottom of your pan comfortably so that your onions can slowly cook up. So what I do then is I take an onion. I like a lot of onions, so depending on how much onion you want in your sauce, I take 1 large onion and I just chop it up and put it in. And again, I'm a knife person, so I'm going to cut it up with a knife, but you can put it in, however you like to chop things up. And while we're doing this, I'll have Elisa take 2 garlic toes or cloves, not toes. And she's going to put them in her little garlic thing and
Garlic press.
Yep, garlic press. And put those. Yep. Now, if I was over by the stove, I would start the grease getting hot, but since we're going to stay here and do this, so you could just start your grease to get warm. And then cut your onion up and your garlic up, and you're just going to put it in your pan, and you're going to start that cooking right along with your hamburger. So maybe, Elise, we will get
I highly recommend the Pampered Chef garlic press. It is my absolute favorite. You can literally put the garlic in the press with the skin, squeeze it through, and it's I don't know, it's the most amazing garlic press that I've ever owned. So I'm putting a little plug in for Pampered Chef at the moment.
And if you really want to be less work, you can always buy garlic already chopped up at the store.
Yep, the minced garlic works
The
great.
minced garlic works great too. You would take, for every clove, you take it. If you want 1 clove, then you'd have 1 teaspoon of the minced garlic. Today I'm using 2 of this because I like to have plenty of garlic taste. And so once we get this in the pan, we'll start. You could also so this 1 onion and 2 garlic cloves, and then I'll have Elisa put some of this in. We don't have a tablespoon here.
Right. We can wait till you're done with the onion and then you can add it.
So this is called Italian seasoning. Find it at any store, and that's what I use for my seasoning. We'll be putting a tablespoon of seasoning in with the onions and the garlic while it's cooking. And
you use that whole onion?
Well, you wouldn't. This is a really big onion, so part of me says maybe I don't need quite this big of an onion because we have a lot in here. So you can sort of gauge it how. I probably won't use this quite. More like this was a very large one.
Yeah, I think you're
I think we're good. So we got the onion and the garlic and the oil in here, and then I'm going to also add the seasoning right away because then it gets into the while this was cooking, it'll get into there really well.
And how much Italian seasoning?
1 tablespoon. Do you have a tablespoon?
I don't. So we're gonna estimate.
We're going to guesstimate. But if you have at home, you would put a tablespoon and in. So I'm going to guesstimate that's a tablespoon. So,
Then we're gonna add a little more. We're throwing it in the air.
and makes it smell good too. So Alyssa can take this over and start putting that on the stove to cook up on low. So just put it on low, and you're gonna just stir it periodically until the onion gets tender. So then that's the seasoning part of this. And then the next part would be the tomato sauce. Now, this is 2 large cans. Sorry, this is making a big batch, but one thing I have discovered is if you have leftover sauce, then you can also make lasagna. So a lot of times I'll take my leftover sauce and I'll make lasagna with it. So it makes really good lasagna as well. So keep that in mind, because I know when you get older and if you're making a meal, let's say for a smaller group of people, there'll definitely be leftovers at this meal. And you can also freeze this sauce. So that would be another option. My mom, when I go see her, she loves my sauce. So she'll have me freeze little containers of it so she can take it out. So that's another thing.
And I actually think one of these is crushed tomato.
Yes.
This is sauce and this is crushed tomato.
So I used to have just sauce, but I like it a little bit more with some texture to it. So I told Alyssa to pick up a crushed tomato. Then you can have a little bit more texture. You're not wrong if you do all sauce, or you're not wrong if you do one of each. So I have here crushed tomato and tomato sauce. This brand is fine, but I was going to tell you about my favorite brand to use. And my favorite brand of tomato sauce to use is Cantonita. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but Cantonita. And Cantonita, I would use the same amount, but this is my favorite brand. If I was going to pick my favorite brand, I would use this brand. But so we're going to open the 2 jars of this, and again, we will go like, all right. So this will make a very nice large batch. So it'll really be nice if you're having company and you can serve this. It will serve quite a few people. So and like I said, you could use all sauce if you want, or you can use, to be honest with you, you could use puree. This says puree, so you could use a puree. It's just this one with the crush have a little bit more texture to the sauce. So you will put once your onions are soft and cooked through, then you would add your 2 cans of tomato sauce. Thank goodness for aprons. That's what they were made for, I guess. So then the next thing you'll need is you're going to need a small can. This is a 6-ounce can of tomato paste. And again, it doesn't really make any difference what kind of tomato paste you pick. Some tomato paste, I have found, also has flavoring included. Some comes with garlic, or a lot of times once you get to making this and you want a little bit more flavor, you could buy a tomato sauce that has flavoring already in it. This is just a regular plain tomato paste, which is fine. And you're going to put this whole, this will thicken it up a little bit. It won't be watery. So you'll add your tomato paste. And then you don't have to put mushrooms in it, but my family really enjoys mushrooms. I've also at different times, if I have fresh mushrooms, I've cut the fresh mushrooms up and I just add them. When I add all this, I just add them as well. Or you can just, like we're doing today, open a can of mushrooms, small can. This is around 6-ounce can of mushrooms. And I would drain them. We're going to drain them in the sink. I'll be right back. So you drain your mushrooms and you'll be adding those as well. So then we have pretty much all the ingredients. Now, the thing that my kid, I'm going to tell them, one thing usually people say, well, yours tastes a little bit different than somebody else's. What do you do? This is my magic ingredient. So I don't like really acidy tasting spaghetti sauce. So this spaghetti sauce, I add a little brown sugar, and it just adds. My kids really love it. Maybe that's the piece that they love. I don't know, but it does. It takes away some of the acidity and makes it blend really nicely. So when you get everything put in the pan, then the last thing I add would be salt and pepper to taste. I don't measure it. I just sort of salt and pepper to taste. And then I add about 1/4 cup of this. Now, you start with 1/4 cup, and that should be about right. If you feel like that's too sweet for you, you can always make it a little bit smaller. But I usually do about 1/4 cup. Sometimes, depending on the size of the batch, I might add even a little bit more. So some people prefer it not as sweet as I like mine, but so I'm going to add also 1/4 cup of brown sugar.
Another thing that's nice about the sugar, my husband, he is very sensitive to acid-based foods or tomato sauces or anything of spice. So when he has spaghetti, he likes a little bit of the sugar in there because it doesn't hurt his stomach. So I do think the sugar kind of adds that extra component.
Balances out the acids a little bit. And my kids have always loved my spaghetti sauce. And my sister took the recipe one day and we were sitting down to eat and she says, something is wrong. And she had forgotten to put the brown sugar in. So it just really doesn't hurt it. And I know if you're diabetic, you might go with something that's sugar that's, I know they have brown sugar, a sweetener or something.
Yeah, and then you would need a lot less.
Yes.
If you were using a sweetener. Yeah. Maybe we should move all these ingredients over by the stove. We can set them on this tray and take them over there. I'll bring the computer with us.
Okay.
So we're gonna move over by the stove. Basically, at this point, we are waiting for the onions to get a little bit softer. And then we're gonna add all this stuff into our pan. And we aren't gonna make the noodles today, but I personally do love a wheat-based noodle. These are actually organic. If you prefer organic, but I have found over time, I used to only eat straight white noodles and I have really grown to like wheat noodles. They also have gluten-free noodles out there. They have all different kinds of pasta now, or you could make your sauce. It's so good. You could throw it over vegetables.
Right.
You could, like she said, use it in lasagna.
Sometimes even if you want to just take garlic bread and forego the noodles, you could put it over garlic bread. We don't usually have spaghetti. If there's kids involved, we always have garlic bread there with it as well. So
the sauce to me is almost better the next day sometimes too, when it's had one day to sit and you have it as leftovers the next day. So yeah, so we'll move all these ingredients over by the stove. Let me grab a tray here for my mom with a rolling cart for them.
Sure.
I don't know that you'll need this lid.
It really does make great lasagna too. I'm just telling you, because usually when my son's over, he says, "Mom, are we having lasagna this week since you have leftover spaghetti?" And I usually say, "Yeah, that's what I'm going to make with my leftovers." So
yeah. All right, you get to see my lovely face here for a second. We're going to move over here by the stove, and I'll see if I can get this pretty well balanced.
not cooking very fast, is it?
No, our stove. I actually have to figure out how to turn this so that it can actually let me use. I'm going to use your tray here, Mom. So give us just a second here to get set up. I didn't make anybody too dizzy. Hopefully you can see my mom. Oop, move it up a little bit.
So we cooked up the hamburger ahead and poured off all the grease and just make it. Now, I've always just crumbled it, but I know some people like spaghetti and meatballs. So if you would prefer making little balls, you could do that. For my family, we always just sort of made it this way. But granted, if you prefer meatballs, you could just make individual meatballs and fry them up. But that was made separately. And here is the onions that are cooking, which aren't quite there. But I think what we'll do is we'll just toss it together, Elisa, and then you might have to just simmer it a little bit more later.
Yeah.
Because these aren't quite cooked. But you can always simmer it.
Okay.
So then we're going to add. Do you have a?
Yep.
All the ingredients. That's all right, we'll just make it. We'll just make it. And it smells really good too, that's the other thing. Making me hungry, actually. Look at this. Those onions cooking with that, onions cooking with the Italian seasoning. Okay.
So right now you're adding the sauce.
Yep, I'm adding the sauce. It's funny, this recipe I got when I was in college, and I'm way past college. And the gentleman who's,
Isn't she beautiful?
the gentleman who gave me the recipe, believe it or not, was Italian. He was he went to college, and he made up a college cookbook, so to speak, and his contribution was this. And ever since, whenever this has been a favorite of my kids, truly a favorite. So I'm just tossing in the mushrooms just like they are. If you want them a little smaller, you could always cut them up. Only we should have saved out some for Shane because he doesn't like mushroom. And if you don't have to put the mushrooms in, when Elisa makes it, she always has to save out some sauce because her husband doesn't really care for mushrooms. So if you prefer not having them, you wouldn't have to put them in. It's just something that we always put in. It's going to be difficult to get out. And one nice thing too, this is not a watery sauce. So when you're serving it, you're not going to get, sometimes you can get sauces that are like a little bit watery, but it's very thick. This helps thicken it up. So this is the paste we're adding right now. And that'll really thicken it up. Like I said, this is just a plain paste. Again, you can use any kind of paste. They also have a Cantonita brand of paste. It comes up with some garlic seasoning and seasonings in it, or just plain. That'll be good enough. And then we'll add the hamburger.
You want yours brown sugar?
We'll do that. Right. You have salt and pepper. We'll just
Oh,
add a
yeah.
little bit of salt and pepper. And we made a pound and a half of hamburger. I've made it, if you really want it thick, you could always add more, but a pound and a half is about right for this recipe. And just about right for the recipe. And I'll show you how thick it is in just a minute.
And if you wanted it thinner, you truly could add a little water. You know, if you just find you just like your sauce a little bit thinner, water is not gonna throw off the flavor by adding a little bit if you had
or
to.
you could just buy a smaller can of sauce,
Mhm.
and sauce will also thin it out more. So this is nice and thick. So you very easily, I'm just sprinkling pepper in however you think you would like it, just a little bit of pepper. And I'm putting that brown sugar in. And it is nice and thick. Now, of course, it's going to cook through, but you just let it, then you simmer it. And I would let it simmer for probably till it starts to bubble real good, and simmer for a half hour even, because simmer for a half hour even, because it's sort of the more it sets, it's nice. Even if you make it a day ahead, Elisa was right. If you make it a day ahead and let it sit overnight, a lot of times the flavor is even better the next day. So if you're having a gathering, just make it the day before and then just warm it up, simmer it the next day and so on. So I'm going to show you how nice and yummy and thick this is. And like she said, if you want it to be a little thinner, you could just buy another small can of sauce, and that would make it even go farther. And it be, so as you can see, I don't know if you can see, but it's very, well, almost did it.
I'm gonna hold it up so you can show it.
It's very, I don't know if you can see.
Yep.
But it's nice and thick, and I don't, if I wanted to thin it out, I would probably just go get another small can of
You
sauce.
do have your small can of sauce. Do you want to add it to your
You
cantina?
might want to, because you're having company right this weekend.
Yeah,
you know,
let's
so-
add it in, Mom.
Okay,
I'll grab it for you. Oh, this is the puree. Is that okay?
that's fine. So we're just gonna add a small can because she's having company this weekend, and there's a lot of kids coming, so we'll make it go a little bit farther. But you wouldn't have to do this, but if you want to stretch it a little bit more, that's a possibility too. And like I said earlier, if you are just if this is a big batch, probably for some of you think, oh, that'd be way too much. That would be scars. That would be way too much for me. What I would suggest is just take some plastic containers or some small pint-sized jars. That's what I do for my mom. Fill them up, put them in the freezer, and then when you're hungry for spaghetti, you pull one out and you have spaghetti for yourself. And my mom loves to do it that way.
Sauce freezes so well.
It does.
Even myself. So I make a big batch of spaghetti sauce at home, but my kids and my husband, actually, they don't add nearly the sauce that I do. So I do freeze it. And like I said, I will pull it out and I will add it on top of my vegetables, or if I have extra noodles, or it's just so good. I would dip chips in it, to be honest. I'm weird, but I just think the sauce is so flavorful and so good for so many things. So
yep. So there we go. And we should be set. And Lisa's got company tomorrow, and she'll have her spaghetti sauce ready, and she'll just have to make up the noodles. And I hope you enjoy it. It is yummy.
it's very yummy.
I tell people it's my one clean thing when it comes to food, and it's from scratch, and anything from scratch I always think is better. So hopefully you'll enjoy it and make maybe some lasagna with it, or you can make save it and freeze it, or just share it with a family or friends. And it was very nice meeting all of you.
Bye, everybody. Have a good day. Happy Friday.